Welcome to Edupedia World. In my last lecture, we had a detailed discussion on the topic benchmarking and the concept of the benchmark as well its benefits. Now let's have a look on benchmarking as a logistic process. The philosophy of the logistic process benchmarking is recognized only with the help of the recognition of the importance of process improvement as well process control. So we may say that the philosophy of the benchmarking is based on two concepts. One is the need or the recognition of the process improvement, whereas another is the recognition of the controlling. Quality management that is required to improve the quality of the output is also associated or is attached with the controlling as well the manufacturing process. In a supply chain or in a logistic supply chain, the manufacturing process begins with supplier, runs throughout the own businesses and through the various intermediaries and reach on to the final customer. Customer satisfaction can also be achieved at the end of the logistic supply chain, but there is a need of very careful monitoring and controlling in each and every activity that is related with this supply chain. So the process of establishing such an efficiency standard gives rise to the need of the logistic benchmarking process. It can be accompanied in two steps. The first step is the identification of the structure of the process, whereas the second step is related with identifying the critical points in the process. The identification of the structure of the process is related with the network of the material, the information flow, the activation and the procedures that links the supplier, the firm, the distribution channel members and the end users, which are quite complex in their nature. It can also be depicted with the help of a flowchart that indicates the direction of the flow from one step to another. So it can also be made up of definite logistic supply chain structures. As for the next step, or as far the second step of this process is considered, the second step of this process is also made up of carrying out benchmarking against the best in class concept. The firm in any industry that is best in its performance can be considered as having the ideal identical critical point resource. A logistic supply chain can be thought as a chain of events from source of material through to the end user, having a series of suppliers, customers, relationship. Then the firm has to carry out benchmarking process and performance at each of the supplier or the customer interface that represents the logistic supply chain, and the process of performing them in an ideal manner and monitoring them can be known as carrying out benchmarking in an efficient manner. So now this benchmarking or the process of logistic benchmarking is attached with critical factors or key performance indicators. These key performance indicators are the points that are measured for the critical success or failure of the company, or that are dependent on the failure as well the success of the company in the marketplace. So these are only the points that defines the success or failure of a company in the market space. Depicting all these factors as well, associating it with the supply chain management concepts will lead to the development of the supply chain map. As far this map is considered, it is time-based representative in its nature. It is considered as the time-based representation of the processes and operations that are involved in a supply chain as the material or the product moves on along the supply chain. When there is a movement which is based on time and can also be depicted along with the flow of the materials, then this depiction will give rise to a mapping concept. The associated mapping concept is known as supply chain map. Now, let's have a look on the different priorities that we generally use in the establishment of the benchmarking strategy. The benchmarking strategy reflects the benchmarking priorities. Benchmarking priorities is a combination of the strategic importance, the organizational readiness, the relative impact on business economics, as well make versus buy economics. As far the strategic importances are considered, these are the processes which are likely to be played in an organization which is major role in the success of the company in a long term. Or we may say that the long term importance having processes that are to be included in the benchmarking priorities refers to the strategic importances. Organizational readiness. Organizational readiness refers to the processes which are executed by people who are willing and ready to improve. The third is the make versus buy economics. Make versus buy economics are determined to have high impact on the performance on products, profitability, and which are difficult to be sourced from quality suppliers. Next is the relative impact on the business economics. Processes that have a disappropriate income on total cost, revenue generation, productivity of fixed assets, and productivity of human resources are the example of relative impact on the business economics. So altogether, benchmarking priorities are influenced by all these four factors. These four factors are the determining factors in the development of a benchmarking priority agenda. Now, there is a relation in between this benchmarking priority establishment as well the factors of the benchmarking and critical success. Or we may say that there is a relation in between critical success factor, benchmarking and benchmarking priorities. Benchmarking priorities define critical success factor and critical success factor define benchmarking. When this is accompanied in collaboration with the critical success factor, then the success is certain in its nature. So we may conclude that the critical success factors are those characteristics, conditions, or variables that when properly sustained, maintained, and managed can have a significant impact on the success of a firm in a competitive industry. Benchmarking is very obviously the base of the critical success factor, or the critical success factor acts as a platform for benchmarking. Thank you for listening.